This is WVUA News with special championship week coverage from Alabama's home team.
So much to be seen in New Orleans, and you have a front row seat with Alabama's home team. And thanks for joining us tonight, everyone. We appreciate you joining us this evening. I'm John Huddleston. We are live once again in New Orleans, where there is beginning to be a buzz in the air because the BCS championship game is just a few days away. And we begin our broadcast tonight with an update on what the Tide did today. Bright and early this morning, offensive coordinator Jim McElwain, quarterback A.J. McCarron, and Heisman Trophy finalist Trent Richardson, along with several other members of the Tide's offensive unit, met with the media. And later in the afternoon, Bama worked out in the Superdome. It was Nick Saban and the guys' first practice in New Orleans. And joining me now is sports director Gary Harris. Gary was at both events today, and he has more.
Yeah, John, it was quite a happening, I can tell you that. Really, the buzz is starting to get going now. During the viewing period of today's practice, the Tide looked poised and focused. I can tell you that. I was there, as they are really starting to crack down and get ready for Monday night's game. Now, during this morning's press gathering, it was a much more jovial mood, as is usually the case when we get to talk with offensive coordinator Jim McElwain. But again, it was all business when the guys stepped onto the football field as they get ready for Alabama and LSU Part 2.
I think knowing each other, from a preparation standpoint, I'm sure there'll be some new wrinkles, because of that fact. Yet, we're just really excited to be here.
The first time we played in this game, I said it was the most physical game I'd ever played in, and I believe that. I think that's why it's such a cool opportunity to get to do it again, just because, it's really not a secret. We know what we're going to do and what they're going to do. It's going to come down to who wins in the trenches.
John, much more coming up on Alabama and LSU in Home Team Sports tonight, live from here in New Orleans, and also big recruiting news for the Tide tonight. Big news.
Yeah.
Tease you like that, but stay tuned. You want to find out
Tide
what I'm
fans
talking
are going
about.
to hang around for sure.
Yeah.
All right, Gary, thank you very much. We'll see you a little bit later on. All this week, we're bringing you the sights and sounds of the Big Easy. And what you might not know is the city's huge role during the Second World War. WVUA's Matt McCoy took a trip to the National World War II Museum, where he sat down with two veterans, one who survived Pearl Harbor, the other who stormed the beaches of Normandy.
The first wave that came in was about 187 planes. And then there was about a 15-minute lull, and then another 287 planes hit us.
From the attack that put America into the war to the one that let them out.
Hell, the woods was full of Germans, and you had places to go. Everybody had some sort of effort to make.
Between U.S. Army Staff Sergeant Thomas Blakey and U.S. Marine Warrant Officer Bert Stolier, both of which are retired, they took part in every major battle in the Second World War. So it's only fitting that these two are constantly one of the first things you'll see when you walk into the National World War II Museum in New Orleans.
When you see that they're World War II veterans, and that's very touching. And obviously, as time goes by, there are fewer of them.
And because of that reason, along with nearly 3,500 other veterans, Blakey and Stolier have shared their lives on tape to forever be remembered. But until then, the two will sit welcoming all the visitors that make their way to the museum that's in their honor.
You like welcoming people?
Yes, that's my life.
What is it like to, describe that feeling to me, to get to come in here and just welcome everybody into this museum?
You know what I tell young people? Tom Brokaw called us the greatest generation. I tell them we're not the greatest generation. We had a job to do, and we did our job. But you young people have to be the greatest generation because we need you all.
John, after talking to those two veterans, the stories that they have are just amazing. And the place over there on Magazine Street here in New Orleans, it's big, and it's very symbolic of the beaches that stormed on Normandy. Mm-hmm. The boats were actually built here in New Orleans, which is why this museum is in New Orleans and not in D.C. And they're all done on grants and donations, mostly donations. And they're asking for money and to make sure this legacy is lived on and to generations and generations to come. And if you want to donate, that link is on our website, WVUATV.com. Just click on numbers and links, and you can donate.
All right, man. Thank you very much. Good story tonight. We appreciate it. Earlier this week, we introduced you to a diehard LSU fan living in Tuscaloosa. Well, believe it or not, there are actually diehard Alabama fans living in Tigerland down here in New Orleans. Ann Cardwell just moved to New Orleans a few months ago, and everyone down in the Big Easy is friendly and nice. But she says that doesn't stop the Bama fans from getting together and watching the game so that they can root the Tide on to victory. Cardwell says everything was going great until Bama's big loss against the Tigers late in the season.
It was fun until November the 5th. And after November the 5th, I was ribbed a lot and had to wear LSU things, that was not fun. But normally it's a lot of fun to be here.
Cardwell says if LSU wins again on Monday, she has to don the Bayou Bengals garb yet again. She would not be happy about that. That is the story from down here in New Orleans for right now. Right now, though, we want to send it back to Tuscaloosa. Victoria Sheehan picks up our coverage from there.
On your home team Crime Watch, a shooting in Tuscaloosa in broad daylight. According to police, it happened around 2 o'clock this afternoon at the Laundry Nook on Skyland Boulevard. Sergeant Brent Blankley told WVUA after an investigation it was determined it was a drug deal that went bad. Blankley says they have taken 3 people into custody and also found guns in their vehicle, but authorities are also searching for other suspects in another vehicle. Officials say no one was injured. Also on your Crime Watch, the search for a robbery suspect. Tuscaloosa police say this happened Wednesday at the Roadway Inn on Skyland Boulevard. Authorities say the suspect came up from behind to an employee working at the front desk and demanded money. When the employee ran away, the suspect fled the scene. If you have any information, call Tuscaloosa County Crime Stoppers at 752-STOP. A Tuscaloosa man has been arrested in connection with an abortion clinic fire. Authorities say it happened in Pensacola, Florida. Federal officials say Bobby Joe Rogers was arrested Thursday. Officials say Rogers set fire to a clinic in Pensacola Sunday morning. It's not the first time this clinic has seen violence. It was bombed Christmas Day in 1984, and in 1994, a doctor and a volunteer were shot to death as they arrived. No one was hurt in Sunday's fire. The last home in the Cedar Crest neighborhood of Tuscaloosa is no longer standing. According to Incident Command's Meredith Lynch, the city of Tuscaloosa demolished the building earlier today. Before then, you could see the building standing right behind where the Express oil change once stood on 15th Street. Lynch says the homeowner signed up for the city's volunteer demolition program, which gave the city a right of entry waiver to demolish the property. Several Shelton State Community College students were inducted into a new mechatronics program today. 40 students were selected from an applicant pool of nearly 200. They will have hands-on experience with automotive assembly line robots and a chance to one day work for Mercedes-Benz. The top 80% of students in the program are guaranteed a job with the company upon graduation. Well, with a first look at Alabama's home team forecast, here's Chief Meteorologist Richard Scott.
Hey, Tori, a little cool on this Thursday night. Back down to 37 degrees in the city of Tuscaloosa, a little bit warmer down to the south where moisture levels are starting to increase a bit. Even west of town, look, check out Little Rock, 50 degrees now. Tulsa, Oklahoma at 52. Warm air advection will take over tonight and during the day tomorrow. It's going to warm up quickly. In fact, 50 degrees by 9 in the morning, 62 at lunch, 68 later in the day. I think cloud cover will increase on our Friday, but we should stay dry. What about the rest of the forecast? And your weekend forecast will have much more coming up in home team weather, so stay with us for that. Now we toss back to John down in New Orleans.
Still to come tonight on WVUA News at 10. We're down here in New Orleans, but we know that many of you will be staying back in T-Town. You might want to know places to watch the big game. We're going to tell you all about that and one locale coming up. Also still to come tonight, the Alabama women's basketball team played its SEC home opener this evening against the rival Auburn Tigers. Gary Harris will have highlights later on in Alabama's home team sports. And we've still got more to come from the center of the college football world, New Orleans, Louisiana. Stick with us. Welcome back to WVUA News at 10, live from New Orleans tonight. We appreciate you spending part of your Thursday evening with us. And we know that many of you will not make it down here to the Big Easy for the big game, and many of you will be staying in Tuscaloosa, but there are places that you can get together with fellow Tide fans and watch the big game. With just game day 4 days away, local businesses are preparing for fans who are sticking around T-Town. Innisfree Irish Pub is just one of the places around town that is opening its doors. Manager Kari Lochamy says the staff is excited to host both Tide and Tiger fans.
It's really exciting. We like to take videos of everybody, and expecting that win at the end, we like to take that video of everybody celebrating, and every touchdown we play the fight song, and it's just really, really exciting to get everybody in here just like pumped as if you were watching the game in the stadium.
And for students who are on campus January 9th, university officials say they can watch the BCS championship game in the Ferguson Center. Well, we've got our crew here in New Orleans, and we've got our crew in West Alabama. But you can find even more BCS coverage with just the click of the mouse. Just go to WVUATV.com. There you can see newscasts, web extras, and behind-the-scenes videos straight from New Orleans. Just click News and the BCS tab. You can also visit our Facebook page for the latest updates from the Big Easy. Well, as we mentioned at the top of our newscast, all this week we are taking you on a tour of New Orleans. And of course, when you talk about the Crescent City, one of the first things that comes to mind is the local cuisine. And of course, when you talk about food, you talk about Bradley Whittington. He takes us on a tour of the Palace Cafe.
I believe we're starting off with an appetizer here, a crab meat cheesecake. So I'm gonna try that here. This crab meat cheesecake. It's got like a little sauce here on top, of mushroom sauce with some crab claws on top here. Pull off of that here. Absolutely delicious. Now we're heading to round two. We have the Doville crusted fish. Oh my. So we got some crusted fish going on. Got some potatoes here and some kind of sauce going on. Let's take a little bite of that. Let's get some of the got some vegetables on here as well. Wonderful. This is a white chocolate bread pudding. You can see it right there. It's got chocolate flakes on top with a little white chocolate sauce here. Absolutely amazing. One of the best bread puddings I've ever had. They go through 75 tons of white chocolate since they opened in 1991. That's a lot of white chocolate. Well, I'm going to go ahead and finish this because it's great, and I'm just going to go ahead and launch it. But stay tuned, WVUA News. All throughout the week, I'm going to be visiting places that have some of the best food in New Orleans. I'll take you there and show you what they got. Until then, I'm Bradley Whittington reporting for WVUA News.
And you know, Gary, I told Bradley earlier that I thought that he was just coming up with stories to go eat for free, and he did not deny that. He's not even hiding.
Well, as long as we get some good workout out of him.
That's right. We'll feed him any day.
You know, it's worth a free meal, I guess.
Yeah. What you got coming up in sports?
I actually sampled a little Cajun cuisine myself tonight.
Did you now?
Yeah, I actually got a chance to go to dinner. How about that?
I like it.
But still followed recruiting news. Under Armour All-Star game, All-American game tonight, and big recruiting news for the Crimson Tide. We'll have it for you. Plus, the football team got its first look inside the Mercedes-Benz Superdome this afternoon. Alabama holding a full pads practice. That full practice report coming up next in Alabama's Home Team Sports, live from New Orleans.
Now, the Tuscaloosa Chevrolet Sports Update with WVUA's Gary Harris.
Well, good evening, everybody, and welcome back to New Orleans. Right off the top tonight, some big recruiting news for Alabama. The Under Armour All-American game played tonight, featuring some of the best high school players in the country. Two players that Alabama is recruiting made verbal commitments in that game. First, let's start with the first dose of good news. Baltimore, Maryland cornerback Cyrus Jones committed to the Crimson Tide early in the fourth quarter of that game tonight. Later in the fourth quarter, the number one safety prospect in the country, Louisiana's Landon Collins, picked the Crimson Tide. Oh yeah, over LSU. Now, there's a downside to that. His mother was with him, and she went on TV and said, LSU's number one. I wish he was going to LSU. So a little family drama there, but Landon Collins does commit to Alabama. But again, the mother obviously pulling for LSU. It's still a month until signing day, so some stuff could happen. But great news for Alabama tonight on the recruiting front. Building championships for the future, playing for one right now. It's been a busy day for us here in the Big Easy. It started bright and early this morning. Alabama had an offensive press conference here at the Marriott Convention Center Hotel, the media hotel. They brought players in and broke them up into two groups, the offensive players, while one group was in the press conference, the other was doing individual interviews Also on hand, offensive coordinator Jim McElwain. Now, McElwain, as you know, is leaving Alabama right after the BCS championship game. He's the new head coach at Colorado State. So for the last couple of weeks, he's been wearing two hats, preparing Alabama's offense and at the same time doing some recruiting and trying to put together a staff for Colorado State. He says, though, let's be clear on this. Right now, his loyalty is to Nick Saban in Alabama and trying to win a second national championship.
It's been a challenge, but I think as these guys can attest, our focus since I left there has been, for this ball game. And what I try to do is late at night make the calls and catch up. Coach Saban has been unbelievable, a help because he went through kind of the same thing when he took the Michigan State job when he was with the Browns.
And this was the scene this afternoon in the Mercedes-Benz Superdome as Alabama held its first practice since getting to New Orleans. Nick Saban, of course, trying to win a third BCS championship, his second with the Crimson Tide in 3 years. A.J. McCarron, the Alabama quarterback, he knows he's got to play better than he did in the first game against LSU. Alabama expects that he will. The running backs going to be a big part of the offense as always. We know about Trent Richardson and Eddie Lacy. Johnston Fowler, though, could be a factor in the game depending on Lacy's health. He's been trying to get over a turf toe for some time. We know how bad those are. Mark Ingram of the Saints has already been put on the injured reserve list because of one. Defensively, Alabama can't play much better than they did the first time against LSU, but Nick Saban expects the Bayou Bengals offense to change some things up.
See what kind of changes they've made and what they've done for the remainder of the season, as well as what they've done prior to that. In terms of in bowl games when you have this much time to prepare, it's not unusual to see something a little bit different. So we did learn a lot from that game in terms of things that we could do better, and that's something that we certainly tried to focus to improve on.
Meanwhile, LSU practiced this morning at the Superdome. Les Miles and company, they were getting after it pretty good out there. One thing that was interesting, the Honey Badger, I guess maybe he was trying to play a trick on the photographers he knew that wanted to shoot him. He wore number 24 instead of his usual number 7. Thurl Simon, his teammate that's number 24, wore number 7, so they swapped up the jerseys. Didn't fool our Todd Hoyer, though. He knew exactly what he was doing. He got the right guys. While Alabama's offense was meeting with the media, following that, the LSU defense had their press conference. Defensive coordinator John Chavis said the Tigers are very good on defense, but their biggest advantage is their team speed.
We need all the luck we can get from time to time, and I say that jokingly, but our guys do a great job. They play hard, they play fast, and certainly we even going back to the Oregon game, that was a big factor in terms of us having the kind of success was the speed of our defense.
Definitely facing a great team, in all three phases of the game, so we look at it from this standpoint, our playmakers, the guys who lead this team, are definitely going to have to step up, and play their best football, and put our team in position, to win this game.
Let's change gears now and talk some Alabama women's basketball. The Crimson Tide playing their home opener tonight in the SEC against the rival Auburn Tigers. Let's go to Foster Auditorium, pick it up first half, tied up 13-9. Auburn's Jasmine Williams will grab the rebound, but she's stripped by Jasmine Robinson of the Tide. She takes it coast to coast with a tough finish to boot. Alabama was up 15-9 later in the first. Auburn trying to get it up court, but the Tide defense is swarming. Erica Russell with the steal. She finds Shafante Myers. Northridge to Sunshine connection right there. Myers hesitates before giving it back to Russell in the corner. The three is good. Bama led 20-11. Myers had 13 points and 4 assists. Russell had 12 points. Tide led 26-24 at the half. But bad news in the second half. Auburn rallies and winds up winning it by 10, 65-55. So the Tide drops to 0-2 in the SEC. And in case you're just joining us, our top story tonight, even from down here in New Orleans, big recruiting news. Cyrus Jones of Baltimore, a quarterback, and Landon Collins, the #1 safety in the country from right here in Louisiana, both commit tonight to Alabama at the Under Armour All-American game. That's a look at sports. We'll be back right after this.
Finally tonight, Kentuck held its first art festival of the new year this evening to open 2 new exhibits. The exhibits feature works depicting the region's great musical traditions and sculptures made by Claire Lewis Evans. Art Night is the first Thursday of each month. Kentuck welcomes everyone from the public to come and celebrate the opening of all exhibits in downtown Northport galleries. There will be a special live performance by Bobby Horton this Friday with music relating to the works shown during the exhibit. And that is our report tonight, live from New Orleans. For Gary Harris, Richard Scott back in the studio, I'm John Huddleston. We appreciate you watching, and we'll see you back here tomorrow night at 10 o'clock. Good night, everybody.